Hey everyone, and welcome to our deep dive today.
Excited to be here.
We're going to be going through Abdu'l Bahā's Paris talks.
From 1911.
Yeah, so way back when.
Over a century ago.
Crazy.
It is wild to think about how much has changed since then, but also how relevant his message still is today.
Right, and how forward-thinking he was even back then.
Absolutely.
So we have a collection of these talks and excerpts from them, and we're going to kind of pick those apart.
Yeah, dive into some of the themes and ideas
that
really stood out.
So let's jump right in.
Sounds good.
The first talk kind of centers around this idea of kindness to strangers. Might sound basic.
Yeah, on the surface.
Abdu'l Bahá takes it so much deeper.
He does. He shares this really interesting story, this anecdote about how Eastern and Western customs differ when it comes to expressing warmth and hospitality.
And how, true kindness goes beyond just words.
Right. It's about that heartfelt connection.
And this was the time when, traveling between different parts of the world
is much less common.
Yeah, and communication was so different.
So for him to emphasize this idea of treating foreigners with kindness, even if there's that initial hesitancy or suspicion, was pretty radical.
It's like he's saying, let your kindness be
that catalyst for change.
Yeah, and inspiring others
to be better.
Which really goes back to that core principle of the oneness of humanity.
That is
this idea that
we are all interconnected regardless of
backgrounds,
beliefs,
yeah,
all of that.
And it makes you think how much we still need that message of radical kindness today.
Definitely.
So moving on to the second talk.
Okay.
We're getting into this idea of thought and action.
Okay. And this is a big one.
Yeah, he's basically arguing that our thoughts are so powerful. They shape who we are. Here's the catch. They need to be translated into action.
Exactly.
To have real impact.
It's not enough to just think good thoughts. You have to actually put them into practice.
So he draws this distinction between
philosopher
and spiritual teachers.
And it's really fascinating.
Because one is all about the realm of ideas.
And the other is about embodying those teachings in their actions.
It's like that analogy about the lamp.
Philosophers are like lamps that contain oil, but they give no light unless they're lit.
And the act of lighting that lamp
is putting those thoughts into action.
Yeah, making them a source of
illumination for the world.
I love that.
And it connects so deeply with this Baha'i emphasis on
service.
Living a life of service. It's about contributing to the betterment of society.
Don't just talk the talk.
Walk the walk.
Right.
All right. Good.
Which leads us to the third talk.
Okay.
Where he delves into his observations on the East and West.
Ooh. This is where it gets interesting.
He sees the East as possessing spiritual illumination and the West as excelling in scientific knowledge.
And he doesn't see these as opposing forces.
Right.
But as
complementary aspects of human progress.
They need to come together.
He even uses this metaphor of Paris as a tree.
That needs the flaming sun of the divine power of God.
For its spiritual unfoldment.
Such a powerful image.
It speaks to that potential he saw in the West.
Yeah.
That capacity for spiritual growth that could be unlocked by embracing the wisdom of the East.
I love that.
Now, the next talk explores universal love.
Right.
Which I think is something that's really close to my heart.
Me too.
And he's basically arguing that
the forms of love we often experience.
Yeah, like
political ideals.
Can be limited.
Traditional even.
He's not saying they're wrong.
Right.
But they don't represent the full potential of human love.
He compares these limited expressions of love to the light of a lamp.
Which can only manifest through a physical instrument.
And just as the lamp needs oil
to burn brightly,
he's suggesting that infinite love needs a perfect, unselfish instrument to shine.
And for him, that instrument...
The power of the Holy Spirit. Yes, this concept is central to the Baha'i faith.
This idea that the Holy Spirit acts as a conduit between the divine and humanity.
Enabling us to experience a love that transcends all earthly boundaries.
So true universal love.
It's not something we can achieve on our own.
It requires tapping into a higher power.
Exactly.
Which leads us perfectly into the fifth talk.
Okay.
Where he takes this idea even further.
He does. He uses this beautiful analogy.
Yeah.
Comparing the sun to the divine reality and its rays to the Holy Spirit.
So just as the sun's rays bring light and warmth.
The manifestations of God, figures like Jesus, Buddha, Muhammad.
They bring the power of the Holy Spirit to humanity.
They're like channels through which divine love and guidance flow into the world.
And he emphasizes that the Holy Spirit isn't just this abstract concept.
Right.
but an active force that can transform us.
Like St. Peter and St. John.
To ordinary fishermen.
Transformed into powerful spiritual figures through the power of the Holy Spirit.
Showing that potential that exists within each of us.
That's a beautiful thought.
It is. Yeah. It's an invitation to connect with that spiritual power within.
And allow it to shape our lives.
Absolutely.
I love that. Yeah. So much to think about already.
I know, right?
And we're just getting started.
I know.
And welcome back.
To our deep dive.
Into Abdu'l Bahā's Paris talks.
I know.
We are uncovering some real gems here.
We are. And one of the things I find so fascinating is his observation of the Western world's, fascination with material progress.
It's amazing how much his words resonate even more than a century later.
I know.
It's almost eerie.
It is.
Right back in 1911.
Yeah.
He was already expressing concerns about focusing solely on material advancement.
And that focus has only gotten stronger.
Oh, absolutely.
In our modern world.
It's everything.
Yeah.
He specifically warned about technology and how it could be used for warfare.
And unfortunately, he was right.
We've seen it firsthand. Can be used for good or for bad.
It's that double-edged sword.
Absolutely. And that's where this Baha'i principle of balance comes in.
Okay.
This emphasis on balancing material progress with spiritual development.
So it's not about rejecting technology or material wealth.
No, it's about making sure our spiritual and ethical values are guiding our progress.
Right. So it's like he's saying all this amazing technology is great, but if we don't have the moral compass to guide it,
it can become a tool for destruction.
Exactly. And that's a message.
I think we need now more than ever.
For sure.
And this idea of needing that moral compass leads us to the next talk.
Okay.
Which focuses on trials and suffering.
Which may seem a bit
counterintuitive. Why would suffering be a good thing?
Right. But the way he explains it makes so much sense.
He uses this analogy of a plow preparing the soil for a better harvest.
Oh, I like that one.
Yeah, so just as the plow breaks up the hard ground to allow for new growth, suffering can actually refine our character.
So it's not about just glorifying hardship,
no,
but recognizing that those challenges
can help us grow,
make us stronger,
more resilient,
and help us understand life.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And to really drive this point home, he shares his own experience of enduring 40 years of imprisonment.
Wow.
And he talks about this time with joy and contentment.
Really?
Emphasizing the power of spirituality to overcome even the most challenging circumstances.
That's powerful.
It's a reminder that even in those dark times, we can find that inner strength.
Okay, so let's shift gears a bit and talk about the importance of women.
This was so important to Abdu'l Bahá.
I know, and it was a pretty radical stance back then.
Oh, absolutely.
To advocate for equality between men and women.
He didn't just talk about it, he actively challenged those social norms.
Right.
He said women's lack of progress actually hinders men's advancement.
So we're all interconnected.
Exactly. It's not a competition.
Right. We rise and fall together.
Beautifully put.
And he was very clear that the inequality between men and women was a product of societal conditioning.
Not a natural order.
Right.
He said women are the very foundation of the world of humanity.
And he believed they should have equal opportunities.
In all areas of life.
Not just the home.
Absolutely. And this ties back to that principle of the oneness of humanity.
Right.
He said humanity is like a bird with two wings.
Men and women.
And we can't truly soar unless both wings are equally strong and developed.
Okay, so moving on to the 11th talk.
All right.
This is where he outlines those 11 principles.
The foundation of the Baha'i teachings.
Like a blueprint.
Yes, a blueprint for a more just and unified world.
So we have the independent investigation of truth.
Encouraging critical thinking.
The importance of education.
Essential for progress.
Oneness of humankind.
Of course.
Equality of men and women.
Absolutely.
The elimination of all forms of prejudice.
Creating a world where we embrace our diversity.
These principles offer a practical roadmap.
For a world where everyone can thrive.
A world of unity, justice, and peace.
That's the dream.
It is. Welcome back to our deep dive. It's amazing to me in these Paris talks how Abdu'l Bahá really, adapts his approach, depending on who he's talking to.
Yeah, he can connect with anyone.
It's like he has this innate ability to speak to people from all walks of life.
He's pretty incredible.
It is. So in these next two talks, we really see that.
Yeah.
We're going to start with his address at the Theosophical Society in Paris.
Now, for listeners who might not be familiar with them, The Theosophical Society was known for their interest in Eastern philosophies and spiritual exploration.
They were already kind of open to exploring different spiritual paths,
which created this perfect space for Abdu'l Bahā's message.
Yeah, so he recognized this common ground.
He did, and he used it as a starting point to introduce them to the Baha'i teachings.
So he starts by talking about the importance of seeking truth,
no matter where that search might lead you.
And he uses this analogy of the sun rising from different points on the horizon.
Oh, I like this one.
Me too. And he's basically saying we don't limit our appreciation of the sun to just one location.
Right.
So we shouldn't confine our search for truth to just one religion or philosophy.
It's about expanding our perspective.
Embracing a broader outlook.
Exactly.
And then he outlines those 11 principles from the Baha'i teachings,
which we talked about earlier,
that provide that framework
for building a better world.
He touches on things like the oneness of humanity, the equality of men and women, the need for a world-governing body to establish peace.
He also delves into some more nuanced ideas.
Right.
Finding that balance between material and spiritual progress.
Making sure everyone has their basic needs met.
And separating religion from politics.
It's really amazing how he tailors his message to resonate with this specific audience.
He highlights the aspects that would appeal to their existing beliefs.
It's like he's not just lecturing.
It's a dialogue, an invitation to really think about these principles.
I think it's a beautiful reminder that understanding and unity often comes from those points of connection.
Those shared aspirations that can bridge our differences.
Absolutely. So now let's shift gears to his talk at the Friends Meeting House in London.
Okay, the Quakers.
Yes, and this one is particularly fascinating because of that historical connection between the Baha'i faith and the Quakers.
So for context, centuries before Abdu'l Bahá visited London, there was a group in Persia known as the Society of Friends.
Okay.
They practiced silent meditation and emphasized this concept of inner light.
This divine spark.
Exactly, and they later became known as the Quakers.
So there's this really interesting link between Abdu'l Bahā's background and the Quakers' spiritual lineage.
Yeah, it adds a whole other dimension to this talk.
And Abdu'l Bahá actually acknowledges that shared heritage right from the start.
He does. He praises them for their practice of silent communion with the divine.
Recognizing that importance of seeking inner guidance.
And then he goes into this really deep discussion about the power of meditation.
Which he calls
the key for opening the doors of mysteries.
So it's not just about relaxing.
No, it's about accessing a deeper level of awareness.
Connecting with that divine spark within.
Opening ourselves up to inspiration and guidance.
And he clarifies that meditation isn't about completely emptying your mind.
Right.
It's about focusing on something higher.
Like the heavenly sun.
Cultivating that state of receptivity.
Allowing truth to illuminate us.
I love that imagery.
It's beautiful.
It is.
And he even takes questions from the audience.
Oh, wow.
Offering insights into topics like the nature of evil, the progress of the soul, different kinds of love.
And that's where he shares those 4 kinds of love.
Yes. The love from God to humanity, the love from humanity back to God, the love between human beings, and a love for God that encompasses all other forms of love.
It helps us understand how complex love really is.
And its power to connect us to both the divine and each other.
And towards the end of this talk, he shares a tablet.
A written message.
About the role of women in the Baha'i faith.
And he reiterates his belief in the equality of women.
Okay.
Women will go neck and neck with the men.
In all aspects of life.
And he specifically mentions administrative aspects of the Baha'i community.
Which was pretty radical at the time.
Definitely.
He really sees this future where women achieve extraordinary privileges.
And their contributions are celebrated.
It's a powerful message of empowerment.
It is.
Calling for a world where the talents and abilities of everyone are recognized and embraced.
Wow, what a journey through these Paris talks.
I know, it's incredible how much wisdom and compassion is packed into these talks.
It's inspiring.
They offer practical guidance for navigating life.
And creating a better world.
Abdu'l Bahā's message really transcends time and culture.
His words are as relevant today as they were over a century ago.
I feel so inspired after going through these talks.
Me too. I think the most powerful takeaway is that it's not enough to just listen to his words. We need to let them guide our actions.
So as we wrap up, we want to leave you with a question. What resonated most deeply with you from these talks?
And how can you bring those insights into your own life?
To contribute to building a more just and unified world.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.
We hope you found it as enriching as we have.